Welcome to the shack. We're about to rock. We got the Deacon 2 and DZ. Dr. DZ, how about you? Stories from the shack. Welcome to the shack. We're about to rock. We got the Deacon 2 and DZ. Dr. DZ, how about you? Stories from the shack.
Hello everyone and welcome to Stories from the Shack. Now, I know most of you probably watching this have seen this before. I'm the Deacon and this is DC. We're going to talk about stories from the Midwest. Now most of you are probably watching this on a television, but have you ever thought, who invented the television? Well, you stay tuned. We will enlighten you tonight. We are going to tell you who invented the television, and you can impress all your friends. So DZ, you got the facts, man. Lay it on us.
Well, from what I could tell, the man's name was Philo Farnsworth. He was originally came from Utah, born and raised. Is that what you gathered too?
Yes.
From Utah? Yeah. And then he actually moved to Fort Wayne, Indiana, and based all of his factories out of Fort Wayne. So in a way, it was kind of 20 minutes away from where we're at here. Television originated in our backyard, at least in a mass production scale.
Yeah, he was quite an engineer. He had a couple other patents, if I'm not mistaken. And perhaps some of you out there have never heard of Philco or RCA and the other TV manufacturers back in the 50s, 60s, whatever. He was the predecessor of those. Was it 1923 that it was invented?
I thought it was in the 1930s, but I could be wrong. My research escapes me from this point, and my note taking is not that great. But
yeah, well, it wasn't really mass produced until I think in the 40s, if I'm not mistaken. But all the things were in place, and we all owe this man a great deal of credit every time you turn on your television, because if it weren't for him, we wouldn't be able to enjoy the TV programs, the videos that we watch, and even this podcast in a lot of cases. So, and that's the thing that a lot of us really don't know. We just take for granted. Like most everyone knows who invented a telephone, right?
Alexander Graham Bell.
Yeah, you ask anybody who invented telegraph or telephone. Alexander. Who invented the light bulb?
Edison. I was going to say Nikola Tesla.
Almost close, but no cigar. But if you ask someone who invented television, 99% of people probably won't know.
That's true.
But they use that every bit as much as they use a telephone and a light bulb.
Probably more, if you think about it. Some people watch 3 or 4 hours of television a day.
Yeah, well, I imagine some a lot more than that.
Yeah, all day.
So yeah, and that's the thing that we as a society sometimes things just fall in place. We don't think about them much. Granted, it's a big deal if you know who invented television. Probably not. You're going to be watching it anyway. You don't care who invented it. You don't care who invented the light bulb as long as it turns on when you flip the switch. That's all we care about sometimes. But it's interesting if we can backtrack and like. Our podcast is based on stories from the Midwest. So we try to pick characters from the Midwest that are relatively unknown so we can share their stories with you. And hopefully you find it interesting, and hopefully you share it with your friends and share this podcast with them. So, you can all sit around, watch it together and say, wow, what was his name again?
Philo Farnsworth.
See, there you go. I forgot already.
Now, see, one of the dates that I do remember is that he seemed that from Wikipedia and all the other research that I did, that he had moved to Fort Wayne in 1936 and started mass producing the television. Does that sound right? Like, or at least starting the building
Yeah, it
blocks
was
of the
in that-
factories.
yeah, before World War II. Yeah.
And one thing I didn't realize is that the television actually didn't come out on a mass scale until the 40s. I'm thinking it's the 20s or early 1900s. I didn't realize it was that late. And that's, that kind of blew my mind a little bit.
Well, yeah, and it really took a while to take off because obviously there weren't the programs that we have today. You didn't have that base, right? Now everybody's just like us. We're building a podcast that can be shown on a television, right? But if this television was only in existence for a year, it makes it a lot different. So the point I'm trying to make is before they developed the programs, early on in television, the first things that they broadcast were mostly news channels, news events, news broadcasts. Then they call it the golden age of television is when all the sitcoms started. And early on, it was live. It was live TV, just like a stage actor.
So the
no recordings. It was live.
The laugh tracks were really people laughing.
Your laugh tracks. Well, some of them had live audiences.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when it said filmed in front of a live studio audience,
right? Yeah.
Okay.
So back in the early days of television, the 50s especially, when it started catching on, then you got more programming and advertising and things. Of course, then with advertising you got more money, you got more research, and all started building on one step at a time, and then they didn't have color till in the late 50s.
Okay.
Because it was all black and white. If you look at some of the old sitcoms that are in syndication now, they're all black and white. But they did have a thing called colorization where they did actually, make some, like I think Gone with the Wind was the first movie that they ever, colorized because it was initially in black and white. So you have all these steps in the process. And one of the things that a lot of people don't think of, I don't know, I haven't checked, but I'd have to imagine that the average home has probably 3 or 4 televisions.
I'd say that tracks. I would say that's probably a fair assessment.
But if you ever saw the movie Back to the Future, right? When McFly is sitting with his mother in the 50s, right? Eating dinner.
Yep.
Right. And they're talking about a television show. And his little, I guess it'd be his uncle, asked him if he had a television. And he said, well, yeah, we have 3. And the kid said, no one has 3 televisions. And back then you didn't. Yeah, and it was almost a piece of furniture. They had big consoles. They had record players built into one side. It was a big deal. It was literally a piece of furniture in your living room. So as it evolved, they got more programming, more actors, they got more money. There again, when they started broadcasting in color, early on, there were 3 networks, ABC, NBC, and CBS. They were the only 3. And they signed on, I think, at 6 or 7 in the morning, signed off at midnight.
What was the screen then if you happened to turn the television on?
It was just like that eye thing you see.
Okay, yeah.
With it looks like a radar thing. I forget what it's called. And you'd have a tone. I forget what they called it. But then every morning when they signed on and every evening when they signed off, they played the national anthem and the flag, show the flag flying in the breeze. So how things have changed, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, there's no 24 hours this, 24 hours that. There were commercials that were dedicated to a particular program. That's the only program that they would advertise for. So they had these relationships that formed into the network of advertisers that we have today. Of course, a lot of the advertisers in the early days are no longer there because their products are obsolete. Used to be one called Geritol, was this elixir that old people would take.
Geritol?
I don't know if you heard of Geritol.
Geritol, like geriatric? Like Geritol? Why was it called?
Geritol was some kind of, I don't remember exactly, it was some kind of medicine that old people needed to take, or was, help with something. I don't remember. It's kind of funny.
Geritol.
But yeah, there was a couple of programs I remember as a kid that had Geritol as their sponsor. So, then Brill Cream, you probably never heard of that. It was hair gel. That
I haven't heard of
it
that.
looked like real greasy, and they had this jingle that they sang that went along with it. It's supposed to make men irresistible to women, so they had all these quirky little advertisements that went along with it. And then unfortunately, somewhere in the 60s and going forward, RCA, Philco, and there was another one, Magnavox. Were kind of the three big players. They made TVs, they made record players, they made radios. They were the king, the big three of electronics, if you will. And then somehow the Japanese market came in and just everything's gone. And now you don't hear those names anymore because they're all Sansui, whatever. Japanese. Not that they're bad products. Don't get me wrong. I'm not bad mouthing them, but that was kind of the evolution of the television. And then before a television, the thing was like this big. It had this huge thing on the back, and the screen was designed to implode if you broke it, so it would shatter out. It was like a vacuum.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
So if it broke, it would go in, and I've seen them break. It's not pretty.
Never seen a television screen break ever.
Yeah, well, the newer ones, I don't think you can, but now you got the flat ones, and these actually had a curve. There's a funny, they had, when they still had black and white programming, they had these things that you could put on your TV that was supposed to make it color. It was a joke.
like a screen you'd put over the screen and it was supposed to color it? Okay.
Yeah, it was a joke. Or even they had like a pinwheel with different colors on it with a light behind it that would shine on the TV, supposed to pick up the colors on it, which never did. So,
never worked out.
Those are pretty funny things. But yeah, we've come a long way now. You can pick up a TV with one hand pretty easily, right? Then you needed 2 or 3 people to pick it up. These things were monsters. Tubes. We were talking earlier about tubes. You turn it on and it'd have to warm up. All the tubes would have to kind of light up in sequence, if you will. And it'd take maybe a minute before the TV screen would come on. And then it had this big ugly eye that kind of just grew out of nothing, right? Like a sci-fi movie. And then it had, I don't know how many tubes. And they would quite often go bad, so you'd have to replace the tubes. And most drugstores had a place, a tubing charging or testing station where you could take your tube, and they all had proprietary prongs, so you couldn't possibly put the wrong tube in the wrong spot. So you just take that to the drugstore, you plug it into there, and you hit the switch, and it'd tell you if that tube was good or bad. Of course, if it was bad, you just bought another one and you went on your way. Now if your TV goes bad, you throw it away and buy another one.
Yeah, and that's one point that I wanted to bring up is I remember back when I was growing up, a big screen television was very expensive. Most families, didn't have one if they, they only had one if they had one. And now you got a big screen in every room, and it's just like the cost of television, in comparison with everything else seems to have went down. It seems, you know what I mean? Like you could buy a big screen TV for as much as you can, get your weekly or your monthly groceries. I don't know. I'm just throwing a figure out there, but it seems like they're much cheaper compared to everything else.
That's pretty consistent with most new electronics. You look back in the 90s when computers first came out, computer was probably $3,000, you know, for a cheap one. Now you can get a laptop for $300. You know.
Yeah, that's a good point.
You know, just the evolution. You know, obviously, there's a price adjustment that falls into place in the market. You know, we usually dictate that. If it's too expensive, people won't buy it, and they'll either change it, reduce the price, or it'll just go off the market. So, yeah, television has come a long way in, you know, well, I would say 100 years, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, no kidding.
Uh,
Going on.
But yeah, it's a lot different than it was back then, and we have Mr. Farnsworth and his constituents to thank for all the program that we enjoy every day.
Next time you turn on your television, think of Philo Farnsworth.
Right, and don't forget to hit, what did you do?
You gotta hit, like, and subscribe.
Yeah, it should be on your television screen. Bye.
See you.